Hello everyone. In this session, we want to take a look at folder redirection policies, script policies, and administrative templates. We want to address folder redirection first. When a user saves a document, by default, that document goes into the user's My Documents folder. As an administrator, you might have some challenges with the My Documents folder because it is difficult to back up. It would be easier to back that My Documents up if it were on your file server. You might have difficulty in calculating the usage within that folder. If the user moves to another computer and logs on to that computer, the roaming profile will follow that user, but lots of times that profile is huge and takes some time to download. What if we wanted to make sure that everything within that My Documents folder is clean from any virus? It's difficult to virus scan. So what we want to do is to institute what we call folder redirection, where the user's My Documents folder is going to be stored on your file server. It will appear to the user as though that information is being saved within their profile only. But if you use the folder redirection policy, then that user's My Documents data will be stored on your file server. Let us take a look at the steps that we would take to redirect the user's My Documents folder to the file server. To create the group policy object, we're going to go into Tools, Group Policy Management. We want to expand the Contoso domain. And we already have an organizational unit called the Finance OU. And the users who will be affected by this policy are already within the Finance OU. So we want to right-click on the Finance OU, and we want to create a group policy object. And we're going to call that group policy object Finance Users Folder Redirection. We want to go ahead and click on OK. And then we want to expand the Finance OU because we now want to edit that group policy object, Finance Users Folder Redirection. So we want to right click and click on Edit. To edit that GPO, we want to click on User Configuration. Policies, Windows Settings, Folder Redirection, and we want to click here on Documents. We want to right click on Documents and click on Properties. And here you can see we have the settings for Documents. You have two tabs, Target and Settings. On the Target tab, we see that we have settings, and we can choose either basic settings or advanced settings. If we choose basic settings, we redirect everyone's folder to the same location. If you choose advanced settings, we specify locations for various users and groups, or we can choose to put not configured. For our session, we're going to go with the basic settings. And here we have to choose a target. Let's click the down arrow to see the options. Redirect to the user's home directory. Create a folder for each user under the root path. Redirect to the following location. Redirect to the local user profile location. So you can make your choice. For our purposes, we are going to redirect to the following location. And the path that we're going to choose is the DC, which is the share path. And we already have a folder called Finance Share folder on the server. And so that's where my documents will go for the users. So we want to click on OK. And that is how we redirect the user's My Documents data. It will appear to the user as if the data is being saved within their local profile, but we will actually have a copy of the user's data on our server available for us to back up and to check usage and virus protection and any other protection we want for the company's data that will be put within the My Documents folder. The next type of policy that we want to take a look at is script policy. We want to look at the steps that we would take to assign a script policy. Now, why a script policy? An administrator might want to make several changes and implement certain settings that would apply when the computer is started up or when the user logs on. And to do that, the user would probably have to have a script, because you're going to have to use that script to push the policy. Let us make the policy on the group policy objects here by right-clicking on group policy objects and say new. And we want to call this policy mapping. Let's say we wanted to do a policy for mapping a network drive. So we're going to say mapping network drive. Of course, you can do this manually, but you might want to do the policy so that whenever the user logs on or the user starts the computer, that the mapped drive is ready for the user to use. So we're going to call it mapping network drive. And we're actually going to expand group policy. We're going to right click and edit that policy. Now, there are two policies. There is the shutdown and startup policy, and there's the log on and log off policy. If you're using startup and shutdown script policy, it means that you want to be using computer configuration. If you want to set a log on or log off policy, it means that you have to go through user configuration. So let's do the startup and shutdown. So we're going to click on computer configuration, policies, Windows settings, scripts, startup, shutdown. Now we can click on startup or we can click on shutdown depending on which one we want to set the policy on. Let's click on startup. And here, all that you need to do is to add the script. So let's say you had written a VB script or a PowerShell script. All you would need to do is to click on Add, search for the script, browse where you have the script saved, and click on OK. Cancel a box here. And you can view the script file stored in the group policy object by pressing the Show Files button. So for our purposes for this exercise, we just wanted to show you where you will add that script. If you were not a script writer and you needed to know how to write a script, you can go online, search for the script. You will find the script that suits what you want to do and customize the script to suit your purpose. Save the script, and when you get to this part of the screen, you simply click on Add, search for the script, browse for it. Once it comes in, you say OK. You also can use PowerShell Scripts. Let's click on PowerShell Scripts here. And you can run scripts in the following order. Run Windows PowerShell Script last, run Windows PowerShell Script last here, or first. So you can choose between first and last how you want to run it. Now, the same very thing applies for shutdown. If you wanted the script to run at shutdown, you would use startup instead of shutdown. Let's cancel the box here. Cancel again. So remember, all you have to do is to set that policy. We had set the policy on the group policy object, so you could now go and you could apply that policy to a particular OU. The same thing we have for shutdown. Now, if you wanted to set a policy for log on and log off, you would have to go through what? User configuration. And then you will see within scripts the option to log on or log off. And it is the very same setting. You choose the script, you add the script. You can do a VB script, you can do a Windows PowerShell script. And remember that this gives the administrator the option to implement a setting when the computer starts up, when the computer shuts down, or when a user logs on or a user logs off of the system. We want to concentrate today on administrative templates. The administrative templates are made up of files that we call ADMX files and ADML files. The ADMX files, as you can see here, are configuration files. The ADMX files are the language files. Let's take a look to see the different settings that we can control within administrative templates. On the right-hand pane, we see Control Panel, Network, Printers, Server, Start Menu and Taskbar, System, and Windows Components. We want to talk about administrative templates, group policy objects. Your administrative templates that we talked about would be your registry files, but you're going to see them as administrative templates. You could also go into the registry and configure these same settings, but the user interface that we use as network administrators mostly would be the administrative template section. The ADMX file, which is the extension for an administrative template file, is used to describe both the interface that we see within group policy and again, the registry keys. When you make a change to a policy, that change is updated within the registry. The local path to a policy on your server machine is C Windows Policy Definitions. Your policies are stored within the Policy Definition folder. We want to take a look at that path. You can see here we have Windows C Policy Definitions. And here you can actually see the policy files. These are configuration files. And they are called ADMX files. Those files actually hold the configuration for the policy. You also have within the Policy Definitions folder language files. And to see the language files, you would have to click here on ENUS, and you actually see the ADML files. And those files don't deal with the configuration, they simply deal with the language. Windows uses a central store to store administrative template files. If you're working in an Active Directory environment, you want your group policies to be stored centrally so that those group policies that you create can replicate to all the other domain controllers in the domain. If your policy is going to be stored in the central store, you actually have to manually create that central store within the sysvol folder. Now, we saw that a local copy of the policies will be on your local system. But what you might want to do is to make a central copy. And what will happen is the group policy will check that central copy and send those policies to all the other domain controllers so they are available everywhere within your domain. Central store simply means that the ADMX and ADML files are going to be stored in a central place, which is a sysvol folder, ready for replication. By default, the central store does not exist. So this might well be one of your exam questions. You have to be able to manually create the central store, and therefore you have to know the path where you would create this central store. So let's see if we can follow the steps to create the central store. The first thing we want to do is to copy those policy definitions from the local system. So you can have a local server 2012 machine, and what you want to do is to go to the root of the drive. In our case, this is the E drive here. Open Windows. Then you want to find that policy definitions folder. Remember, the policy definitions folder on the local server 2012 contain the ADMX and ADML files. We want to copy those. So you right click on policy definitions and you click on copy. The next thing you want to do now is to actually put those files on a domain controller within your domain. So we go to a domain controller, we go to the root drive, we open the Windows folder, and then you will find the sysvol folder within the Windows folder. You click to open the sysvol folder, and you will see domain. You open the domain folder, and you will see a folder called policies. It is in this policies folder that you want to paste those policy definitions. So you would click on the policies, and you will right click and say paste. Once you've done that, then you'll see all the policies would then come into that policies folder. And what is going to happen is that those policies then will replicate across the network to all the other domain controllers within your domain, so that the next time when you open a group policy for edit, the policy editor is going to pull the ADMX and ADML files from the central store and will not use its local copy. And remember, I want you to remember where you find the ADMX and ADML files and how you create that central store. Try to remember the path that you use to get to the central store. Remember, we copied the policy definition folders. We went to the root of the drive. We went to Windows. We went to sysvol. Within sysvol, you went to domains. And within domains, you found the policies folder. You open the policies folder, and within that policies folder is where you then would paste the policy definitions so that they will be available for replication to the other domain controllers within your domain. This is the end of the session, and I want to thank you for listening.